Sometimes when I start to talk about campaign finance, people go, well, what the heck, because he's already talked about the evils of horse race and strategy frames, so why do we want to really pay a whole lot of attention to how much money a candidate has or how they're spending that money, that sort of thing? Well, I would submit that if we go beyond just reporting to people who's got how much money, who's ahead in the money game, we can actually provide a lot of depth to our campaign coverage. Now, it is true for a lot of you who are particularly in these small towns that folks running for school board or a ward seat on the board of aldermen or the board of trustees, maybe they're just not raising all that much money, right? A lot of them are going to just file, if they bother, the paperwork that says, well, I don't intend to raise or spend more than $500, a statement of limited activity. But most of us do live in areas where, at the very least, our candidates for state representative or state senator are going to be raising some money. And usually county commission races involve some money and that sort of thing. So we want to get you guys up to speed, if you're not already, on how to mine these records and then how to take your reporting on what you find to a level that actually helps the voter make a decision. So, like it or not, though, you know, as much as I decry the horse race and strategy frame of political news, like it or not, people are curious how much money candidates are raising and where it's coming from. That's okay. A little bit of the horse race in small doses can actually help propel interest in an election, create suspense. We particularly see this at the federal level. You know, as much as I complain about it, people are kind of interested. Who's ahead in the polls? Who's got the most money? Why do they have the most money? So as long as we don't overdo that, I think there is a place for it. But even more than that, I think if we share with people what the actual data is, if we get beyond this candidate has $20,000, that candidate has $18,000, and figure out why is that the case, who's giving them that money, and why, then we're going to be giving people some very useful context. I keep forgetting that I have this really handy clicker. So first of all, some basics. Who has to file finance reports? Now, I know a lot of you folks are from Illinois, Kansas, Iowa. We're going to be talking primarily about Missouri, but the laws are pretty similar in all these states. In Missouri, anybody who's seeking public office and who intends to raise or spend more than $500 has to file campaign finance reports. So it doesn't matter if you're running for U.S. Senator or if you're running for the Callaway County Watershed District Board of Directors. You've got to file this information. Even those who plan to keep their fundraising and spending limited below that $500 limit have to at least file a personal finance disclosure and a statement of limited activity. So keep that in mind, and you want to check and make sure they're doing that. Any committee that organizes and spends money on behalf of a candidate, or if they're forming a committee to oppose or support a ballot issue, those folks have got to file campaign finance reports. Okay, so where do they file them? It kind of depends on what they're running for. If you're running for federal office, you're going to file your papers with the Federal Elections Commission. The Federal Elections Commission does a really good job. We're not going to show you this today because this is more about local elections. But it does a really good job of putting that data online in a way that you can retrieve it very easily and search it and that sort of thing. If you're running for state office, you file your campaign finance reports with the Missouri Ethics Commission. And we're going to show you how to navigate their website here pretty soon. Candidates for city and county offices in city or counties with populations of 100,000 or more have to file both with the Missouri Ethics Commission and with their local election authority, which in most cases is the county clerk. Some of our counties have separate election boards or election authorities. Those would be the people that you go to. The primary difference is if they're filing with the Ethics Commission, you're going to be able to get PDFs of their reports online, whereas in most cases the county clerk is not going to be posting that stuff online. You're going to have to go down to their office, request the records. Usually they don't ask you for a sunshine request on something as basic as a campaign finance report, but you're going to get hard copies, and you're probably going to have to pay 10 cents a page and that sort of thing. So if they're filing in both places, there's probably some advantages in going through the Ethics Commission site. Candidates for cities and counties of populations less than 100,000 file with their local election authorities. So for many of you who are working at small rural newspapers, you're going to have to hoof it down to the county clerk's office to get this stuff. Okay, when must they file? Yes, sir.
What about local school board elections? Do they file?
Yes, they also have to file, and they'll file, again, it depends on the size of the city or the county that they're running in, but they would file with the county clerk or the election authority or the Missouri Ethics Commission. So in Missouri, the deadlines are these. The deadline to form a campaign committee, whether you're a candidate or you're a committee that's going to support or oppose a ballot issue, you got to file that paperwork by March 9th if you're doing this for the April ballot. Otherwise, you're out of luck. Personal finance disclosures are due by February 14th. These, I think, are things we don't pay nearly enough attention to. This is where a person has to say, here's where I make my money, here are the people I'm aligned with, to ensure that there's no sort of conflict of interest. You know, if they're going to get elected to the city council, and the city council is in the business of contracting with them or with companies who are in their line of work, there's a potential conflict there. So they have to file these finance disclosures so that we can figure out whether there's any sort of problem or potential problem. Campaign finance reports have to be filed on 3 main occasions, 40 days before the election. So in this case, for the April 8th election that's coming up, that would be February 27th. Then they have to file again 8 days before the election. And finally, they have to file 30 days after the scheduled election, or May 9th. Now, why in the heck would we worry about the paperwork they file 30 days after the election? It's over and done with. Why do we care? Yeah.
Unspent money.
Unspent money, right? How much are they going to carry over if they're going to run for another office or the same office again, right? Others?
You can't report every contribution before the election, and sometimes the most interesting contributions are those right before the election.
Absolutely. Some people don't want you to know before the election that they're giving to a particular candidate, so they'll give them money, say, a week before the election or a few days before the election. They get this huge infusion of money so they can do a last-minute television advertising blitz. So you want to look at that 30-day after thing to see who's financing it. Yes, sir?
Last-minute expenses they don't think they'll get caught with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Others? So yeah, all of these.
I like to see what newspapers they're running their advertising in besides mine.
Right. There you go. There you go. And we'll take a look at how you look at the forms to see where they're spending their money and all that kind of thing. And you changed up just to fool us, didn't you? Okay. So I want to show you some examples of some things we've done at the Missourian with campaign finance, and we'll show you a Tribune example of some campaign finance news they've done. Let me see here.
Real quick.
Yes.
The 48-hour rule. Right.
Yes. There you are, man.
48-hour rule. I noticed that wasn't in there. So.
Yeah, you want to talk about that a little bit?
I forget what the donation size is on that, but
I
what
think
was it,
it's
2,500?
Is it 1,000 or 5,000?
It's 1,000.
1,000.
1,000?
So if you get a $1,000 contribution, you've got to report that within 48 hours. And if you're in the legislature and you're running for re-election while the General Assembly is in session, you've got to report that stuff as you get it. Contributions over 5,000 have to be listed separately. So there are some special reporting requirements that I didn't really get into. So I want to show you a few ways that we've treated campaign finance at the Missourian. The main thing that I would say, if you're not going to do really in-depth reporting about who's given who the money and why, at the very least, share these documents with your readers so they can tell their own stories with them. So we try really hard at the Missourian to always do that. So again, we use this really cool thing that Mark talked about called Document Cloud. So this is a story that we did during last April's campaign season, and I gotta admit, I can't read the whole thing to you. The one thing that really sort of irritates me about this story, because I preach it so much, is it's devoid of any comments from the people who are giving these candidates money, which I think is some of the most useful stuff we can do. It pretty much says, here's who's got how much money, and then in broad brush strokes, it'll say, well, this guy's getting money from some developer types, and this guy's getting money from some other types, but it doesn't talk to any of those people. But what it does do that I think is really cool is it lets people see the reports for themselves. So this is Document Cloud, which, as Mark said, is free. DocumentCloud.com. You create an account. You might need a little bit of help figuring out how to use it, but it's pretty darn easy to do. So this is Bob McDavid's campaign finance report that he filed. I believe this was 8 days before the election. And I'm going to show you a little bit later more about how to dissect these reports. But this is the whole thing, the whole PDF as we got it off the Missouri Ethics Commission's website. And what better thing can you do for your readers than just give them the report? They can make of it what they will, right? So I think that's a really good thing to do. Let's take another look at this one. In the 2008 state representative races, I'm going back quite a ways because I thought Spencer Willens did a really good job on this. Chris Kelly and Ed Robb ran against each other for state representative a couple of times, and it was a remarkable thing. They're running for state representative, but it's the most expensive state representative contest that ever took place. Together, these guys raised almost $500,000, about $250,000 apiece. So what Spencer did was he looked at the campaign finance reports. My frustration was this one, is we didn't give them the reports. I don't know why we didn't do that. But he actually went out and talked to people about why they were giving these candidates money, which I think is how we can put more context and depth into these stories and actually, again, my soapbox is help voters make a decision, right? So if a whole bunch of university types are lining up behind Chris Kelly because they're confident he can go down to the Capitol and get the university more funding from the state, that's something that you might take heart in or not, and it helps you make a decision. If a whole bunch of trial attorneys are getting behind Ed Robb's campaign because they want tort reform, you might agree or disagree with that, but it's a good thing to know, right? Because as a voter, you can say, well, a whole bunch of like-minded folks are giving that candidate money because they're confident he can pull off what like-minded folks like me want to be done. So I may or may not give Chris Kelly money, but it might tilt me in favor of voting for him or against him. Let's look at another example here. Andrew, I'm going to put you on the spot again. This was an example of, I think you wrote this after the election, and it's not so much about what the records themselves say as it is a discussion of what the heck's going on with city council campaigns in the city of Columbia. So yeah, this ran May 14th, probably after you got the 30-day filings, 30 days after the election. Presumably Andrew went and got the records to see what the sum total of all the money spent was. You want to talk a little bit about what you were trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, just kind of showing that, well, you know, a lot of people go into city council thinking, you know, into the races that, you know, don't really pay close attention to the to politics, at least on the local level, thinking, yeah, I'll just run for city council, no big deal, sounds fun. It's serious business in Columbia, as I've noted here, that you can't just kind of hop in there with $30 and a prayer. You kind of have to raise 5 figures, and it's becoming increasingly more so with each year, as obviously campaigns tend to do each year. So.
Right, yeah. Since 2010, each seat on the 7-member city council has been up for election at least once. And according to filings with the Missouri Ethics Commission, only 2 winners of those 11 races won their respective races after raising less than $10,000. So Jacob, when he covered Bill Paul's whole mantra was, I'm going to prove to people that I can win this campaign with less than $3,000. Guess what? He proved that he couldn't. Which is sort of
I actually got an inspiration to write this story from a friend who was like, yeah, I'll run for first ward. Sounds easy. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
dude, sure, why not? Go ahead.
Yeah. So in Columbia, right, if you're running for mayor, especially against Bob McDavid, you better be prepared to raise a lot of money. Yes, sir.
If you give candidates discounts on advertising, does that have to be reported as in-kind?
That's a really good question that I don't exactly know the answer to. Now, if you give them free advertising, you certainly do. Does anybody else in the room know?
You have to, you are supposed to give every candidate the exact same political rate. That's kind of the unspoken rule, because anyone can look up those records, and there could be certainly a view of impropriety if one candidate is getting a different rate than others. Or does everyone get the same rate?
Yeah, if you just make a package up and say, we've got a special package, and if you run 3 ads, you get a 20% discount. It's to every candidate, So does that 20% discount have to be reported on there? Is
No,
that-
not at all. We do the same thing. Actually, yeah, we have a rate, one rate for the first ad, second ad's a smaller rate, third ad's a smaller rate, fourth ad's a smaller rate. No, you don't have to, as long as everyone's getting the same rate. It's good to make sure that everyone, not just city races, but school board, and even those that have gathered to support a bond issue or a no tax increase or something, if they're wanting to pass a ballot measure, that they're paying that same rate too.
And you said you have a separate rate card for political candidates? Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. Is it more or less than others, if you don't mind me asking?
More or less than,
What you charge for normal ads?
the first ad is around our open rate, and then they get a little less expensive after that.
Okay. So yeah, as Andrew reported here in Columbia, if you're going to run against Bob McDavid, he raised $61,700 the first time he ran. And last time he ran, he had an opponent, Sid Sullivan, who didn't raise a whole lot of money. So I think Mr. McDavid kept a lot of that campaign money in his so-called war chest. So if you're going to take him on and try to beat him in the money game, you better bring your A game. Let's see. And I want to show you a couple more examples here. Now this one, this is another one where I have to acknowledge that the vast amount of reporting resources we have at the Missourian really helped us with this. What we did was, I had about 15 reporters helping me cover the 2012 general election. Let me zoom out here a little bit, if I can. Let's see here. What we did was we went and we got the records of, I'm not sure why this isn't reducing a little bit for me, of every candidate for state representative or state senator or county commission who was on, or any office really, who was on the November 2012 ballot. And we had to do a lot of manual labor here. We went and got the PDFs of the campaign finance reports, and then we paired our reporters up, 2 per race, and they went through and they created Excel spreadsheets with every contribution that they listed and who it came from, when they donated it, how much it was. We took all those individual spreadsheets and sent those to a graphic guru by the name of Stephen Rich, who used Python to create this product, which allows people to tell their own stories about campaign contributions in this particular election. So you can see that, let's say if I wanted to know, for example, sometimes we get interested in how many of the contributions to these local campaigns are coming from out of state. So just by typing NY, I can find out every contribution that came from somebody who lives in New York and who it went to. You can see Richard McGuire gave $10,000 to John Wright. Where's my clicker? John Wright was a candidate for state representative. He won. Yvette Ferguson gave $5,001 to John Wright. I wonder why she felt like tacking on the extra one. Nicole, Paul Sohn, Yvette Ferguson again, another $5,000, all going to John Wright. Kurt Schaefer got a little bit of money from New York. That's pretty interesting. But you can also filter this thing. Let's say you're just interested in one particular race. So you can go House District, come on now, keep up with me, 044. And boom, it just filters everything else out, and you're just getting the information for that particular race. If you just want, maybe you don't care about the Democrat in that race, you just want to look at Caleb Rowden's contributions. Keep up with me now. So I just type Rowden in there, and boom, there it is. And it's ordering them from largest contribution to smallest, or you can decide, well, I'd rather have smallest to largest. So Fred Berry was kind enough to give his own campaign $2.50. Pretty interesting. So this is a really cool thing, but again, I want to emphasize that, when you talk about resources you might not have, I fully acknowledge that this would be a difficult thing for some of you to pull off. But not impossible, not impossible. In fact, during our lab sessions tomorrow, we're going to be giving you guys some spreadsheet skills that would make this at least theoretically possible for you. Okay, where to go in other states. I talked about the Missouri Ethics Commission website, and we're going to show you a little bit about how to navigate that. But I wanted to at least show those of you who are from other states where you go to get this kind of information. I've visited these sites. Most of them are very self-explanatory, easy to navigate. I will say, though, that for some reason, I don't know if it was my browser or what was going on, I did not successfully pull up any PDFs of Kansas campaign finance reports. I got to the page where it listed them, and I would click on the Adobe PDF icon, and nothing would happen. So I don't know if that's a browser issue or maybe their website was suffering that day. But in terms of navigation and how to find them, easy as pie. And the same is true for all these websites. South Carolina's in particular I thought was really, really good. So let's look at the anatomy of a campaign finance report a little more closely. Again, we're using Document Cloud to do this. The cool thing about Document Cloud is it not only allows you to share documents with your readers, but you can also annotate them, add a little bit of information to them. Now, this one should have some notes in it. That's probably because I'm not logged into Document Cloud.
This should all be right. Those notes on the side, on the right.
Ah.
Right? Any of those top right should be click on.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. So I went in and made some notes on this. Thank you, Mark. Contribution summary. So here's some of the key numbers you want to look for on a campaign finance report. I know some of this might be a little difficult to see. But up here, what we're getting is total receipts for this calendar year or election cycle, right? Previously reported. And here's how much money, this is a campaign finance report for Laura Nauser, who ran for 5th Ward City Council in a special primary because we had a council member resign, and so we had 3 people running to replace her. So this is how much she previously reported, and this is how much she raised during the most recent period that she's reporting for. So $13,720. That's a pretty healthy sum for a city council race. And then down here, this is the total for all receipts for this particular election. And that's right at the top of the second page. The other thing you really want to pay attention to is how much money they have left, right? So here we get money on hand at the beginning of the reporting period. Again, we get, here's how much she collected. So that makes for a total of, she spent a total of $15,928.73. So Ms. Nauser, she raised $21,000, but now she's down to $933 in her campaign account. So she's been spending lots of money. Total spent is just a little bit further down on the same page. So we get that right here, $19,740. And then we get to the pages that list itemized contributions. So I've sort of highlighted one. This is what a single itemized contribution looks like. And there'll be page after page after page of these if the candidate is raising a lot of money. I know this is kind of difficult to see, but you get the name, the address, and then you can actually list your occupation. I'm surprised how many people do this because it's not actually required. But this particular contributor listed housewife as her occupation. And then over here, it tells how much money they gave on this particular occasion. And then if they have given to the same candidate previously, this number is an aggregate. That's something you really have to be careful of. We burned ourselves at the Missourian once by accidentally taking this number and reporting it as new contributions, but this is an aggregate number. So if Ms. Stansberry had given $250 to Laura Nauser on a previous occasion, and then she anteed up another $250, this number would become $500. Everybody following? So you got to be really careful about that. Then spending. I would say that a lot of times spending is more interesting to us as journalists and as potential advertisers than it is to readers. Because a lot of times you're going to see the same kind of stuff. You know, they're paying somebody to make yard signs, they're paying somebody to make bumper stickers, they're paying the radio station X amount of dollars for advertising, they're paying this newspaper or that newspaper for advertising. But a lot of times you can get some pretty interesting stuff in here. But this is, automatic phone calls, $90.27. And down here you get some aggregate numbers. In Columbia, what we find, one of the things we look for here is consulting firms that they're working with to get them elected. We have a group called Progressive Political Partners that hooks up with candidates in Columbia, charges them a fair amount of money, but they have a very strong track record of getting their folks elected. So it's interesting to see when that first report comes out, the 40-day before the election report, which of these candidates has progressive political partners working for them, because that might suggest that they've got the machine behind them, right? Yes.
Another thing that the expenses can be good for, and that we've used them for before, is looking to see if they're paying family members to work on their campaign and how much they're paying them. Because especially if you're paying your spouse, you're really paying yourself. And I mean, depending on how you divide your money, I guess, at home. But the point is, it's really easy to, that's another interesting thing to see, is where's the money going? Is the son or daughter of a big donor suddenly getting paid to do stuff on the campaign? So there can be really interesting things to track beyond just how much they're spending on advertising and stuff like that.
Yes, Matt.
Something else I've seen in expenditures that's pretty interesting is you'll see a lot of times, especially if it's state rep race, something where a lot of money's involved, you'll see that they're giving to other campaign committees. Because of course in Missouri, the way campaign finance laws are, there's a lot of shell game, money moves around between committees, which if you get kind of deep into that, it can be resource intensive, but sometimes it yields some interesting results to see where parties are moving money between different races and that sort of stuff too.
Right. Good points, good points. Let's see. Did I look at an itemized expenditure? Yeah, here's an example of what one particular itemized expenditure looks like on a campaign finance report. So Ms. Nauser's campaign paid the media department here in Columbia $7,895.33 for what is billed as multimedia advertising. So that's what a single expense looks like, and then we can go down here and we can see she paid fast signs, $322. General printing, $954, Midwest mailing, $1,733. So yeah, again, not all of this is going to be tremendously interesting to your readers, but why the heck not just supply the report to them and let them make of it what they will. Okay, I want to spend a little bit of time showing you how to navigate the Missouri Ethics Commission website. So that means I'm going to have to kind of stand back here. They make it really easy at the Ethics Commission to find this stuff. They also have tutorials every once in a while that reporters can, they're like webinars that reporters can get involved in. Let's see if I can get this thing. Okay. So the first place I usually go when I'm trying to find campaign finance reports that I'm interested in, I'll click on this link called Candidates and Committees. And then you have electronic filing there. But I want to go down here to this field called Searches. Search by candidate or committee. And then it's as simple as typing in the candidate's name. So if we're interested in, well, let's not pick on Laura Nauser anymore. How about, let's say Bob McDavid. All we have to do is type in his last name and hit search. Now again, those of you who are in counties with populations of less than 100,000, unfortunately, you're not going to find this stuff there because they're filing with your local county clerk. Okay. So down here I get a list of the committees that have been formed on behalf of Mr. McDavid. And so I'll click here, Missouri Ethics Commission ID number. And then I get this page. It tells me what Bob McDavid's address is, who his treasurer is, who his deputy treasurer is. A little bit of history. He ran in 2013 for mayor. He was successful. This is a somewhat moribund statement of committee organization. Not a whole lot to see there, except, if it's the first time this person has run for office, you're going to find out a little bit about who their campaign committee is, particularly who their treasurer is. But reports is what I'm really after here. So I click on reports, and then I go down here to 2013. And here it is. We can see that he filed his 40-day before the election report, 8-day before the election. I neglected to mention earlier, you also have to file quarterly reports. So he filed his April quarterly report. July quarterly report. So let's just look at one of these. Let's look at 30 days after the municipal election. It always warns me that it's going to take several minutes. It usually only takes a few seconds. So, boom, there it is. So you can look this thing over, you can print it out. If you become adept with Document Cloud, which you can do in a couple hours in an afternoon, you can post it on your website. You can embed it in a story. You can do all kinds of really cool things with it. So again, we see that Mr. McDavid didn't do a whole lot since the last reporting period. 32,947 had been previously reported, and he raised another $50, which is kind of curious, really. Then over here, again, a summary of how much money he has left. Total raised for this election, 28,000. He scaled back a little bit from that first time he ran when he raised 61. Down here we get a little expense summary. Those aren't the itemized expenditures. Those are here. And we're not seeing a whole lot of itemized contributions because he only just had the one $50 one, right? But that's how you find those things. It's pretty darn simple. Let's see. We can try another example. Who's curious about what their candidate is raising? Anybody want to give me a name?
Look at Steve Dennis from Grandview.
Ah. Okay, there might be a few Dennises in here. We'll see if we can find him. Friends of Steve Dennis. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, reports. 2006, 2007. So that's an old committee. Let's see if there's another one here. Unless you really want to look at that one. Has he been in local politics for quite some time?
Yeah, but it looks like maybe the city stuff is not on there because that's when he ran for state rep.
I see. Okay. Right. So probably you're going to have to go down to the county clerk. Anybody else want to give me a name? If you're in a city or county with more than 100,000? Or a state rep?
Kraus.
Okay.
First name is Will.
Okay. They just want the last name. And what's Will Kraus running for?
He was a state rep and then ran for state senate.
Okay. So we can see he was successful running for state rep 3 times, successful once for state senator, right? So we go to 2014, January quarterly report. Generating report. So it's a 22-page report, so there's something to see here, right?
Well, these are always interesting because Will gives a lot to the local city councilman in Lee Summit, and they tend to give a lot back to him. So there's always this give back, and we're going to actually do a story on that this year.
Interesting. So this would be the place to go and get all that information, right? So this particular quarterly report, he's reporting that he's raised a total of $183,000 for this one election cycle.
He's also in with Rex Sinkfield, and you guys probably know who he is. So
Is that right? Is
Yes.
that right? Okay.
He's got a couple billion to spend.
Okay. So Mark, you want to come up and show them a little bit about how to look at lobbying stuff?
So I'm going to show you 2 things real quickly. One is just that, and this again, this is going to be Missouri stuff, but there's going to be similar things available anywhere. Tracking lobbying money is something journalists rarely pay attention to, and it can be really interesting. Like in a community like this, the University of Missouri has an entire team of lobbyists, and it would be really nice just for someone to pay attention to who they're lobbying, what they're lobbying for, and so the state here makes it really easy. There's also this really slick site. For those of you here from Missouri, if you haven't seen it, that I'm going to show you that that I think you will like. Can this move? Oh, this can move. Oh, nice. Okay. Oh God, this is all right. Let's see. All right, I'll try it. Let's see how this goes. All right. Can y'all hear me all right? All right, very good. So as Scott was showing you before, let's see, you've got different, oh, you're already on the lobbying page? I am lost and confused. Okay, hold on a second. All right. There we go, lobbying right over there. All right. I just have to get used to what I'm looking at. All right, so you can search by a few different things. You can search by the lobbyist, and you can search by the person that they're lobbying for. So let's do that. Let's look for lobbying expenses for public officials. You got to go through and you pick various things. So like we'll pick 2012 because it's, well, I guess 2013 is over too. I'm that off. That's terrible. That's terrible. Holy crud. All right, we'll do all months, might as well. And then you can just select a public official or group. We'll select a public official. We'll just do, I don't know, statewide official. Oh, it is weird. It's not fitting on the screen. We'll slide on over, and we can pick whatever we want. I guess we'll just do, let's do the Secretary of State. And then they claim there's not very much. That might be right. That might be true. $586 for the state. Really? For the state fair? Wow. Wow. That's a nice trip to the state fair. So you can go through and get this. You can download you can view individual reports. And we found some pretty interesting stuff so far when we've looked through. Let me show you, though, there's lots of different things you can do with this. And one I want to show you, I had the link on my computer. Let me find it real quick. We'll do a Google search. So the St. Louis Public Radio worked with a guy at NPR who I know through IRE, who put together something called lobbying, or lobbying, depending on how you type it, Lobbying Missouri. This is really cool. But and the reason I want to show it to you is it's an easy way of looking at it, but this is the kind of information you can get out of any report no matter how it's done. This is just a little slicker interface, but the interface doesn't matter because you can pull these reports regardless. So we're just going to do Columbia, Missouri. You could type in any address in the state. It would look to see who was in who represents you, which is nice. You can locate yourself if you don't know where you are. That's more of an existential problem. All right. Let's look at Kurt Schaefer. That's fine. And so we get to see what he's gotten in the last, so check it out. Since 2004, let's see, where is, this looks different. Every computer, it looks different, but that's all right. So he's gotten a bunch of money from Pfizer. He's gotten money from Flowtron and Macintosh. Pfizer really interested me. So if I want to look at everything, I can just click through. Let's see. All right. We'll just look at donations that these guys have made, for example. And let's see the kind of stuff they're paying for. So let's see, here's Kurt Schaefer's. Let's see if they'll show us what he's giving them. This is not how it looked on my computer. Where's the sorry guys, I had the specific, here we go, there it is. I just didn't go down far enough. All right, All right, went to San Jose, he got a concert, that's nice. $362 to go to a concert, that's nice, from Time Warner. Mizzou, 4 tickets to the MU-KU basketball game. Look at all that, I mean, check it out. He gets 3 tickets to the MU-Alabama game. He gets, so here's something to think about, right? And there's part of the point. Why the heck is this okay? I mean, really, why is this okay? How is it that as a lobbyist, I can just get you tickets? There's concert tickets. I've seen candidates who have gone to Taylor Swift shows, which brings up multiple issues about both the candidate. But nothing against Taylor Swift and the money itself. But the point is, think about this. Why on earth should an organization, which by its very definition wants something from that lawmaker, right? That's what a lobbyist does. I want something from you. Why on earth should it be okay for them to give him tickets to go to see the Mizzou, Alabama game, or to go see, George Strait in concert? And they do this kind of stuff all the time. Why is it legal? Because who makes the laws? The people getting the tickets. I mean, there's no other reason, but that's really interesting. And if you see a lawmaker that you cover that's in your area who seems to be really pushing a certain issue, look and see who the lobbyists, you can look up on the state's website, you can look and see who the lobbyists are who represent that issue. Lobbyists have to file with the state pretty much anywhere they are, which says, this is who I represent. Then you can look up who they've given money to and what for, and you can figure out how much they've done, how much money they've given, how much stuff they've bought for the representative or senator who represents your area, who's doing this thing, which seems like it's awfully friendly to this organization, which may or may not be in the interest of your district or your area. It's the same kind of thing as campaign contributions. Yeah.
Is there any laws for what cannot be disclosed? Because, for example, our representative has some that says description not disclosed.
What I would do in any case where that is, what I would do is I would call their office. I'd put together a list of those and say, you're filing these reports. There's X number of hundreds of dollars or thousands or whatever it might be, which you're not disclosing. I want to know what those are.
Yeah.
I'd also call the lobbyist and try to find out. And if they won't say, I'd write about it.
So there's no limit for money. Like if they give $5,000, they have to
There are
disclose
some
what
limits,
it
and
is.
sometimes what you'll see is they'll take money from somebody. You have to look through the whole report because sometimes they give it back or they pay for it themselves that they realize it's not going to look good. But does anyone know if there's an actual cap on what the value? I've seen some pretty big ones. And it's an excellent question, which I obviously should know the answer to, and I don't. But I'll find it during a break. That should be easy enough to look up and see what the rules are on that. So anyway, it's another way of thinking about the way that influence is peddled, right? You can give money directly to the candidate to get them elected. You can hire a lobbyist who can give gifts and things to the candidate because why not? And this happens at the congressional level too. If any of you guys are ever interested in looking up similar things on, there's another really cool site that I'll just tell you about quickly. If any of you cover your U.S. congressmen much and you're interested in what they're doing, there's a site called Legistorm. Check it out. And what Legistorm lets you do is track several things, including you can go back in time and see who they're hiring and how much they're paying the people on their staffs. You can also look all the trips they've taken that have been paid for by other people, how much they've been paid and where they've gone. It's the same kind of idea. If ever your U.S. rep, for example, seems to suddenly have some great interest in a topic which doesn't make any sense to you, that's a place you can go to look for that too. So Legistorm, it's free. You have to register, but it doesn't cost any money. These are all just ways of tracking influence, really. That's the same thing in the end with campaign finance money too, right? Scott was talking about the horse race and not wanting to get too stuck up in that, but looking at campaign finance money doesn't have to be covering the horse race. It's easy and interesting to say that, Smith has raised twice as much money as Jones or whatever. That's fine, but what's more relevant is who's giving that money, right? And that's not really horse race coverage. That's influence coverage. And then another thing you can do is if someone wins office and they start appointing certain people to positions or they start voting certain way on certain laws, that campaign finance information sometimes is more interesting after the election than during it. Because you can go back and see, are they just paying people back for what they've done? Are they repaying favors? Can you prove that? No. But if someone suddenly gets a contract or a position or something, there's nothing wrong with throwing a line into that story which simply says, during the campaign, Horvath gave Smith $5,000 or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's just information. You just include it, and people can draw their own conclusions, but it's context they're not going to get anywhere else. So this information is not just information to look at while they're trying to get elected, right? It's information that sort of shows a roadmap of who they might owe, where the pressure is going to be on them afterwards, all this kind of stuff, which can be really interesting if you think about it that way. We are about out of time. Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Mark, as far as a county that would have a lobbyist, not a particular candidate, that would also be on here as well?
Anybody who, anyone who hires somebody to lobby for them, they've got to register, and they have to register. The lobbyist registers with who they represent, and you can search by that. Yep.
Okay, another thing, you can actually post these individual entries on Twitter or Facebook?
So for this particular site, and this is the one that was built by NPR and St. Louis Public Radio, but they just pulled it from the stuff the state has. Yeah, they built in some social media things so you could tweet them out. I know the guys who built this. I have no problem trusting it. You'd need to say where you got it, which I don't think is a big deal. If you're not getting it directly from the state, you're always going to want to say, according to a project put together by X, and I think that's fine. And like I said, the guys who did this are pretty reliable. And
you could cross-reference that too. You can cross-check it.
You can use this as a tool, and then you can just go look it up yourself and quote it directly from the state documents once you found it here. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
How much money did the guys who make this pay you to tell us about?
Absolutely nothing. I'm just here for you. I have no lobbying reports because I'm a private citizen.
Back on the Missouri Ethics Commission webpage, these lobbyist things, they're just as easy to navigate as the campaign finance reports I was showing you. You just click on that lobbying thing, and it's all just right there for you. You can search by lobbyist, you can search by politician. All that
there
kind
was
of
one
thing.
thing I wanted to show you real quick. We don't have that much time, but if you look by lobbyist, this is really important. For some reason on the site, on the state site, there's a when it says the name of the lobbyist, the person, then there's a sentence which sort of says who they represent, but it doesn't show up. And for some reason, it defaults to not showing you the list of who they represent. All you have to do is click a button, but it defaults to not showing you that. So if you click that button, you get a laundry list of everyone they represent, which can be really useful if you're trying to figure out who's working for who. And that's all up on the summary page before you even download any report. It's just sitting on the summary page if you look it up by lobbyist.
A couple other sites I might mention that I didn't include in the PowerPoint because this is primarily about local elections, but if you want to look at federal elections or state representative, opensecrets.org is a great site. Even the Federal Elections Commission, you can search by donor. So if you want to know how much money Stan Kroenke has given politicians here in Missouri or Columbia, just boom, put his name in there and all of it will pop up. Or, Rex Sinkfield, you look him up, it's just astonishing how much money he's given folks. But if there are no questions, perhaps we'll move on. Yes, Nate.
We have an online question. Does Missouri provide campaign finance reports in Excel?
No, they provide them in PDF form. So if you're going to create databases, you're going to have to do that manually.
Though that's something we can talk about tomorrow in the data session about the issues with that and ways to get around that with a lot of government agencies. So, yeah. You should be able to get, the quick answer to this is any state that keeps this data, you should be able to get this data electronically. David, do you want to?
Yeah, the Missouri Ethics Commission site does have ways that you can export the data as primarily as CSV files, which are comma-separated values that you can open up in Excel and then import into other programs.
And we will do that, by the way. In the session tomorrow, I will show you how to take the kind of stuff you can get from a site like this and throw it into Excel very simply. So, also, what I was showing you
maybe
before,
I stand corrected, sorry.
So here you see registration type. You see how it says view hide principal list? There's nothing there. If you just click it, now you get to see who they represent and what they do. Let's see where to go. Well, there it is, yeah, right there. So that's who they work for. And if there were, some people have like 8 different things they lobby and it shows up right there and you can see, oh, this person works for the university and works for this other company and does this other stuff. Yeah.
Sort of backtracking a bit, doesn't the FEC have Excel files, though?
Absolutely,
So
yeah,
if you're looking at congressional campaigns, that's
Again,
easier.
depends on the size. Sometimes it's easier to download it in a different format, but you can download it in a format that allows you to work and search with it from the FEC, absolutely. Yep, yep.